The trio trudged on, Rarity leaning against Fluttershy. They didn't go far before the shock-ridden pony sat herself on the top of a chimney. Her eyes were turned towards the duct, longing for the sight of warmth that smoke provided. She shivered. "She's gone," she muttered. "Our last princess. I can't believe she's dead." Rarity stared into the clear night sky. With her hoof, she traced the outlines of a constellation with a very vague mare shape. "Virgo," she said, saddened. "The sign I was born under. Hard to believe it may be the last stars I'll ever see." "What do you mean? Oh, right." Pinkie resisted the urge to cry in remembrance that twilight kept the stars lit up. "Hope we got nothing less than a ton of kerosene for that lamp," Fluttershy pointed out. And just like that, the Seven Sisters cluster Pinkie was watching flickered away from existence. She mourned twilight, but she needed to keep going. The mare forced herself to stand, unpleased with the urgency. An image of the foals flashed across her mind, a breeze carrying their laughter. It got colder, and many of the night stars flickered out. Twilight really was dead. Leaving behind her inhibitions, Pinkie made a leap to the next rooftop, only to realize there was no building next to the one they were on. All that was there was a long drop to an ice-covered river that split Ponyville in two. The mare braced for an icy death when Fluttershy caught her by the tail. She pulled her back onto the rooftop. "Appreciate the enthusiasm, but I think we'd better keep you alive for now," she told her. With some aid from the Pegasus, they slowed their descent to the ground a considerable amount, setting down in front of the creek. Fluttershy weakly outstretched her wings. Her bones groaned with the overtime of flight she'd put into them. "End of the line," she informed her friends. Rarity stomped on the ice. "On the bright side, the ice looks thick enough to cross." "Can't we use a bridge?" Pinkie asked. "The last bridge was accidentally broken after we crossed it with the wagon," Fluttershy said. "Right now, I wish you woke up way sooner than you did." Pinkie set her front hooves on the ice, humorously slipping and falling. "So many things happen nowadays. I have a list of things I don't worry about anymore. On top of the list, the laws of physics even I can't override." She groaned in pain. An image of her long-forgotten self-confidence appeared. Self-conscience, laughing hysterically at a predicament. Pinkie stood. "You two, stay here. I'll go first." The unicorn and the Pegasus stayed behind the Pinkie, while she edged herself to the slick, thin ice. The world seemed to hold its breath as she crept along the river. Even the mares behind her stood completely still as she walked. Time continued when a large crack formed under her. Adrenaline pumped through her skin, preparing for her dash to the shore. Pinkie finally mustered the courage to look downward, only to find that the crack had not formed throughout the layers of ice, only on the bare surface. She sighed in relief. At last, she reached the opposite shore. In the distance, she could see the outline of the Trotter barrier. "I think it's okay to cross, but I don't think it's a good idea to stand together," she yelled. "Why not?" Rarity asked. "It's not like Rarity can really walk without someone to lean on, Pinkie." I know, but the ice isn't that thick, and to have your weight combined right there doesn't seem too wise." The mares talked amongst themselves for a moment before Fluttershy crept onto the ice. After a few yards of distance was achieved, Rarity limped forward. Pinkie shivered in the cold, more stars fading from the sky. They provided no warmth to the chilled earth, but they almost seemed to cool it more than as they vanished from existence. The mare watched her friends, waiting for them to finish their crossing, and then the ice creaked beneath Rarity. Fluttershy was almost clear of the frozen river, but the cracked area weakened as she passed by. When the white mare stepped on the crack, Pinkie caused. The ice beneath her shattered. The mare froze, her eyes shrunk in fear. She looked up at her friends as the ice caved below her. "Girls, help!" Fluttershy bolted over to Rarity, ignoring Pinkie's warning about the weight capacity of the ice. Groaning, the pink mare bolted after her, praying the ice wouldn't break. Pinkie stopped for a breath when she reached the field of cracks and splits, and Fluttershy gave her careful instructions on how to get away. I can't. Rarity, it'll be okay. You can do it. Just... No, I literally can't. My damned hoof is caught. Could this day get any worse? Fluttershy looked like she was about to explode. Pinkie, can you... Pinkie! She was staring into the distance. Trotters, she mumbled. Along the horizon lay a thick group of the undead. Rarity shrieked. Don't let them get to me! Don't let them! Pinkie had the urge to come over and smack her. You're attracting them to us! She screamed at her. Fluttershy fluttered her wings enough to severely lighten how much weight she was putting on the ice. She hovered above Rarity, reaching down to pull her hoof from the ice. Rarity shrieked in agony. Throwing caution to the wind, the Pegasus set herself down to pry her hoof away in a less rough way. The Trotters were close. Pinkie pulled her gun away from its holster. Fluttershy, I'm lighter. Let me do it. The mare tossed the pistol to Fluttershy, who loaded it and opened fire. It was no easy task with Rarity's panic, her constant whimper, which intensified whenever she touched her hoof, no matter how careful she was. Despite the odds and advancing Trotters, Pinkie eventually freed her trapped friend, just as the ice caved below her. The Earth Pony grabbed the unicorn by her front hoof. Rarity screamed in the frozen torrent of water. To be swept under the river ice was a death sentence. And it wasn't easy pulling her to safety. It actually seemed like she was just put on 100 pounds. The mare yelped. My hoof is caught on something. She shuddered. It feels disgusting. Wait, seaweed doesn't grow in this river. Fluttershy said suspiciously, beginning to be pushed back by the immense number of Trotters. Pinkie pulled Rarity up further, only to see a decayed, bloated hoof ensnaring hers. Vomit filled her mouth, and it took a lot of strength to swallow it. The unicorn, seeing the Trotter grabbing her, panicked, screaming, and tremendously loosened her grip. Between the water and the extra weight, Pinkie couldn't hold on. No matter how hard she tried, how badly she wanted her to live, she couldn't hold on. Rarity's hoofs slicked away. Pinkie watched, bubbles of flooding from her mouth, muffled screams, eyes filled with terror, flailing hooves. She could only watch Rarity be bitten by the bloated Trotters as she was swept under the river's ice. No! She shrieked. Pinkie dived into the water, only to be pulled back onto land by Fluttershy. Hacking up water, Pinkie was gripped by the hoof, and the two bolted as far as their legs would carry her. They were lucky. As the herd tried to cross the river to get to the flesh their kind craved, the entire section of the river collapsed. Pinkie didn't feel lucky, though. The cold and grief was getting to her, chilling her bones and biting at her skin. She became mesmerized in the pale bluish tint of her hind leg. You're gonna freeze! Fluttershy bolted around the area, collecting kindling and wood. She was quick to make a fire, and sat Pinkie right next to it. The mare reveled in its warmth, but the loss she felt outdid the happiness she found in the flames. 2 lives for 2 lives. Is this even worth it anymore? She fought back tears, half fearing they'd freeze to her cheeks. I think it will be. When we get to the capital, I'm going to fucking cut Rainbow Dash's wings off and slit her throat. Then, leave her to become a Trotter. Pinkie shivered, not from the cold, but from the hostility in Fluttershy's voice. Rainbow may have been corrupt, but she was still such an old friend. You don't think that's a little harsh? Pinkie, you were with Rainbow for 2 weeks. I can tell you from experience, she can't be saved. 12 more stars faded. Virgo was completely gone. 10 minutes later, the numbness with Pinky faded, and the final two mares were moving again. They were close to the capital. The Trotter barrier was barely 2 miles away. The mares were more careful, barely stopping to make up for lost time and to keep warm. They stuck to the shadows, where the living couldn't see them and where the trotters were few. The capital was within reach. Fluttershy sluggishly flew onto the rooftop of an old cottage. Mustering every bit of strength within her, Pinky hopped from the dumpster next to the home, to the balcony, and finally she was aided to the top by her Pegasus friend. The yellow pony walked over to the roof's edge, staring at the trotter herd overwhelming the capital. "Pinky, I need to know, how much would you give to protect your foals?" "I'd die if they meant they were safe." "I hope that's true. Looks like we'll have to fight our way through to get to Rainbow. It looks like a lot tried that. I don't think there are many ponies left in the capital." Squinting, Pinky saw what she was talking about. There were dozens of newly transformed trotters. In the yard were the most. The mare took the hatchet from her pack. "We've come so far. We've lost so much. If I give up now, I'm worse than dead. Say the words, and I'm with you." Fluttershy gave her that warm smile that reminded her of the mare she once knew. "Pinky, this was your quest. You don't have to say a word to me. If anything, I should pledge my allegiance to you." Pinky sat down, getting her supplies in order, and Fluttershy saw it. In the corner of her eye, on the balcony of City Hall, the cyan Pegasus she'd come to hate. In her hooves was a rifle, aimed right at Pinky. She subtly gestured for Pinky to move. She didn't notice. Rainbow looked through the scope. What Pinky remembered was being shoved against the roof, before a single shot rang through the air. Fluttershy on top of her, limp and cold. She pushed the heavy mare off of her and stood, taking a look at what happened. Her blue eyes stared upwards in terror. And through her head, a bullet hole that created quite a splatter against her muzzle. When Pinky saw it, Fluttershy's blood splattered on her. Saliva welled in her mouth. Vomit spewed from her muzzle. She felt faint, and darkness surrounded her again. Ponyville was on fire. The cries and shrieks of the foals echoed throughout Sugar Cube Corner. Pinky needed to save them. She ran towards the stairs, but she couldn't go fast. Barely fast enough to classify as moving. She reached the stairs, and they collapsed under her. Twilight's voice entered her ear, banging within her head. "I'm bit." "Now go. Those foals need you. Go rescue them." Her voice was distorted. A faint outline of lavender alicorn appeared, shooting away at the trotters. They quickly overwhelmed her, biting and scratching. The outline's cries filled the air as it disappeared under the mass of the undead. Water filled the basement, chilling her to the bone. It was everywhere, in her nose, her mouth, stinging her eyes. The outline of Rarity appeared, kicking and screaming, trotters pulling her downward as an invisible force pulled her away. She couldn't be saved. The outline disappeared as Pinky swam up through the hole, up the store, and onto the second level. The hallway stretched before her, and the water did not quench the flames. Fluttershy ran beside her, before a bullet took her out. Her outline faded, and Pinky was right before the nursery. She kicked the door open, only to find the foals dead. Rainbow Dash was standing in front of them, rifle beside her. Her grin was wider than what was biologically possible for any pony to do. Her eyes were black and bleeding. Little cyan fur poked through the crimson blood she was covered in. She cackled. Pinky screamed and realized she was on fire. The mare jolted upwards. Fluttershy's carcass was growing pale. Pinky shuddered. At least Rainbow was gone. Fighting tears, Pinky shut Fluttershy's wide eyes. "You owed me nothing, and you just sacrificed the only thing you had left." She sniffed. I think it will be when we get to the capital. I'm going to fucking cut Rainbow Dash's wings off and slit her throat. And then leave her to become a trotter. Don't you think that's a little harsh? She knew better. It wasn't harsh. Rainbow's gunshot had attracted the herd to the inside of the capital. Whether that was good or bad, she didn't know yet. She slid down the gutter pipe that led to the area just before the trotter barrier. The trek over the barrier wiped away the last bits of her innocence. The moist crunching of dead flesh and bone, the piked undead reaching towards her. It went unnoticed by a desensitized mare. To save the lives of 2 foals was her reason to go. Revenge was her reason to keep going. Then she saw the mass of trotters inside the first floor of City Hall. Twilight, Rarity, Fluttershy. Twilight, Rarity, Fluttershy. Twilight, Rarity, Fluttershy. Not one more. With an anger she had never felt before, she sunk the hatchet into the head of a trotter. They all noticed the living mare now, but she was quite overwhelmed by them. Rainbow Dash, I know where you are. She swung the hatchet into another, with enough force to cleanly slice its head, or half of its head right off. I will find you. The mare ducked, while a tall one took a swing at her. His response was a hatchet stuck in his face. I will kill you. More approached, and Pinky's weapon was stuck. Grunting with effort, she eventually bit down on the handle, and removed with a backlash that ended up killing the trotter behind her. Too many have died by your hoof. She moved along slowly, more trotters littering the floor as she killed them one by one. I would stand and fight forever if that meant I'd have a chance at killing you. How long had it been? A minute? A few hours? At last, she was at the staircase. A final burst of energy sped the living mare up the stairs and through the second-floor door. She lay there for several minutes, struggling for breath, when a trotter she hadn't quite killed gripped her by the thigh, seeking his teeth into her, and pulling her back to the herd. The mare desperately gasped at her gun and shot the trotter. She scrambled back up and quietly shut the door. Pinky stared at the bite. No. She shuddered. The bite was already burning. Her heart thumped, and she breathed hard. No, no, no! She slammed the door, her eyes searing with tears. I was so close! Shaking, she took a look at her hatchet. I'd die if it meant they'd be safe. She had bandages in her saddlebags. Burning kerosene could cauterize. A tourniquet was easy to find. Ka-thunk! 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 Ah! Pinky woke up with an undeterminable amount of time later. Vomit crept up into her throat, again, as she saw her dismembered and smelled the coppery scent of old blood. After whimpering, I won't throw up, I won't throw up, I won't throw up, I won't throw up, to herself, on loop, for a while, she felt better, and determined not to lose any more bodily fluids. She was pale from the loss of her own blood. Her back leg was completely gone, and so was the bite. Red leaked through her bandages, but she was also completely alive. She rewrapped the wound, tossing the old soaked bandages to the floor, praying that it would distract the walkers should they break down the door. The mare forced herself to her feet, woozy and unbalanced without the extra leg. She took a few moments before she fully gathered herself. She heaved herself to the final floor, bursting through the door, only to find Rainbow Dash sitting calmly on an old chair, polishing her rifle. The Pegasus quickly noticed her. She snickered. You look terrible. Pinky waggled her leg stump and stared at her newly turned dark crimson coat. I guess I do. The mare smiled as the earth pony's civil behavior. Sit with me. She edged her way over to the faded couch, not risking to even blink away from the rifle. It was with slight hesitance that she sat on the couch. Answer me truthfully, Rainbow. Where are my foals? Your ankle biters are safe. In that room right there. If you so much as ruffled one little feather, so much as touched one orange hair, I swear... Cut the threats. They're okay. A little terrified without you, but okay. Pinky grunted. You know they're all dead? All the elements of harmony. And you're acting so... careless about... You even killed one personally. Fluttershy knew what betraying me meant. I was going to kill her right after you, though the bullet somehow killed both of you. As for the others, they were weak to die the way that they did. Pinky pulsated with rage. Twilight went down to save a life. Rary's only mistake was crossing last. And I don't want some bitch to think otherwise when I was there. Rainbow wiped a few flecks of Pinky's spit off her arm, with a highly docile look. Pinky, I bet you're wondering why you're not dead right now. Keeping a stilled gaze, the pink mare relaxed. All right, I'll bite. You were trying to snipe me earlier. Why not kill me now? Rainbow gestured to Pinky's leg stump. One word, Pinky. Dedication. You just watched your friends, weak they may have been, die. You fought through a herd of undead, got bit once, and hacked your damn leg off. You are strong, Pinky. Not like AJ or Scootaloo. What are you getting at? Pinky fiddled with the knife in her saddlebags. Rainbow Dash smiled. All the capital ponies? They're all dead. All in that herd you saw. With honesty, I think that's a good thing. All these ponies were hooked on the past, rebuilding society, as it was. They thought that with one of our princesses alive, everything would be okay. And now, Twilight's dead. I can build a whole new world, a new society. I can ease and erase the sins of our old Equestria created, especially the tuba. Pinky edged away from Rainbow Dash. And I want you to join me. You may be a braver mare than I am, and I'll need some pony to control the others. She extended her hoof. You with me? Pinky closed her eyes, listening to the echoing voices of every pony she lost. I should pledge my allegiance to you. Now go. These fools need you. I want you to trust me. Make sure the fools are safe while we're gone. Pinky shook her head, wiping out her little knife and pressing it against Rainbow's chest. Her eyes narrowed, betrayal and hate sparkling in her eyes. The last of the stars were going out, and the room went black. Pinky let her final breaths hang in the still night air. The stars began to dimly light back up. Unicorn survivors, struggling to light up the night sky with spells no pony had used since Celestia and Luna came into power. In this dim light, Pinky could see her victim. Rainbow gazed upon the mare, her body littered with stab wounds. She reached towards Pinky, half dead, eyes filled with terror. A blast of glee ran through Pinky as she pulled the trigger, sending a bullet through her head. Rainbow Dash was dead. She was happy, till two mortified shrieks of terror sounded behind her. And there were the foals, who had escaped in the mare's struggle. Their eyes wider than Pinky thought was physically possible. They'd seen their beloved aunt murder some pony. They'd seen death in its worst form. Pinky had nothing to say. She was frozen to the ground.